Today, we have a pretty packed agenda as usual. We're going to start off with community updates if anybody wants to share what they're working on. And then we'll jump into some summit reflections. We'll hear from you as well, any reflections you want to share. And then Nicole and Vihar will share some of the things we're working on with maps in Central, and then we'll stay on afterwards for after hours if anybody has any questions or if we want to continue the conversation. So we've done this now for the last few calls, where we have a few people share their work. Maybe like we could do 2 to 3 minutes, maybe for this round, and you could share anything about your project, how you're using ODK. You could share your screen, share a forum that you're working on, maybe a challenge that you're trying to work through. It could be a project milestone or maybe highlight anything you learned on the forum. So I am curious if anybody wants to share. I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can see everybody's face here. Any takers? Any brave souls want to share?
I could kick off if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
So I'm working on quite a cool project at the moment. It's out in a little island called Lamu, which is off the coast of Kenya, and it's a UNESCO site, and it's got no vehicles on there. So donkeys are a real big part of the industry with sort of mining and things like that. And a lot of the donkeys actually end up foraging on the rubbish dumps, which is really bad for their welfare. So we've got a clinic out there. And because it's quite under resourced as a centre, they want to develop a clinical system. The system we use in the UK is a dynamic system, which is, costs us, I think, about 100 grand a year. So I said, well, actually, we could use ODK for this. And I've started using entities. So I've come into the modern era. So effectively, what we've got to do is register the owners, and then do a sort of veterinary check on the donkey. Now that donkey could either become an outpatient if it's sent home with medication, or if it has to stay into the clinic for any operations or things like that, can become an inpatient. But we want to track that donkey over time as well. So there's a lot of revisiting of that donkey. So once the owner's registered, the donkey's then registered, and then we can collect clinical information. Now, there's some challenges to this. So it seems that a lot of people have very similar names on the island, so we can't just use names to identify people. Um, People don't normally keep their phone numbers for a long time, which was a surprise to me because I've had mine since 2024, with 2004. So we've got to use their Kenyan ID number. Now, actually, their GDPR over there is really, really, really tight. And we've also got an added complication of a lot of the parents send their children with the donkeys to the clinic. So then we've got collecting data of under 18s as well. So there's a lot of GDPR and sort of where we're storing the data and things like that. So there's a lot of background complexities. But actually, I've found it from an ODK side of things really easy to set up a system that rivals Dynamics that we pay 100k a year for in the UK on what I'd pay about 40 quid for our server. So yeah, amazing.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Does anyone have any questions, quick follow-ups for Stu? Any tips? Sounds like a little bit tricky, but I'm glad to hear that it was pretty easy to set up. That's good news.
Stu,
Anybody? Oh
how
yeah,
many
go ahead,
donkeys are on the
Florian.
island, Stu?
You know what? We don't actually know at the moment. So because they haven't collected, they've never actually collected data. They've never done censuses or anything like that. So I think there's probably about 600 as a guesstimate. But this is kind of an aside to the collecting the clinical information is also finding out, well, how many donkeys do we have? Where are they? What do they actually do? What are the common injuries that we're finding between these different groups. So yeah, I mean, actually, considering we've been working there for a number of years, we have no solid data to work on apart from what the vets say to us is what they've observed.
Awesome. All right. Well, we look forward to learning more and hearing how you tackle some of those things. Does anybody else, maybe we have
Yes,
time for, oh, yes.
I sorry, I want to
Yeah,
only to
Eduardo.
thank
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you, ODK team, in especially Sadik, because you helped me a lot with the speed of display on one of our forms in the project. As you remember, we have a lot of load problems with some entities
Hmm.
forms, and with only some little logic or code, I think now we have better speed with in the display of some forms with entities, of course. And I really want to thank you about that. People thanks thanks a lot about that improvement. Thank you so much. And the learn we learn a lot that it's we need to name entities with different names than when you use on some forms. And I think that was the key of the improvement. And thank you so much. Yeah.
We'll pass that along to Sadiq. That's great to hear.
Yes, thanks.
Anybody else? Yeah, anybody else?
All right.
Chris.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
just
for it.
thought it might be useful to share a little trick that I worked out. Everybody probably knows it, but it stop me if you do. So I've just using some entities and worked out that in absence of being able to kind of properly filter out and kind of download a partial set of entities. I'm using choice filters to filter what you see. And I worked out that you can use another entity list to use that filter. And that was almost by mistake. So I was going to use a CSV file and it said, oh, you've already got this set of this entity list. So I've been able to pull together two forms, one to manage the filter and the other to manage the data. So it's working out quite a useful, it's not a GDPR kind of compliant in any way, but it gives me an opportunity to just filter out that data so you only see what you actually want. And there's probably other ways of doing that filtering sort of behind the scenes, but I thought it'd be useful. You're all going to go, oh, I've done that, but hey.
Robson, was that new to you or do you want to share?
No, I just want to share my N8N thing. I was bothering everybody about this, and I just want to share the way I have connected my central to OpenAI chat. So I'm using this. I'm extracting submissions from the central, do some sort of filtering to get into a specific submission, and converts its data from XML to JSON, and then send it to ChatGPT. And this thing can can say something about data quality for a specific submission. So this is the output. Total number of bags delivered by producer is something. On the average, the barcode is not they are unique, and so there's no problems here. And that's it. So it works
I have a
pretty
question,
well.
Robson. Is you are
Okay.
using ChatGPT to the quality of your forms, to check the quality of your forms?
Yes, I have created a prompt for to ChatGPT do some data quality analysis. So I'm sending the data and asking, "Oh, how's this?" And it gets back a text with the quality analysis. But basically, you can configure the prompting for whatever you want.
Mhm.
The thing is just sending data and then the model process and give you something back.
How
Is
is the
one of
analysis
those? Oh,
so
sorry.
far? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to ask, how is ChatGPT using your data? And does it then kind of go into its own? Oh, thank you
So
very
far
much.
it's going, yeah, it's going inside the whole thing. But I have a very small computer. So I started using Olama and some local models, but I have no compute power to handle that. It took too much time. So I decided to process on the OpenAI structure. I have an account there, and maybe the data is also secured in some way under my account, but I haven't really think about the security issues so far. I'm just playing and get excited.
I'm just thinking really not so much I mean, obviously the data security, but also are you helping to train OpenAI? Maybe you are. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, probably. And also I can do some different stuff to start creating my own models and start training my own reg to get better to dealing with the data.
Robson, a question for you. Have you considered using AWS Bedrock? So the
No,
data stays local to your own cloud, it doesn't go
no,
out.
no.
If
I
privacy
don't
isn't.
know. Yeah.
That's a
Please give
question.
me some advice. That's my point in sharing. Please give your feedbacks and say, hey,
And
you
you can
should
run it
look
on
at that.
demand, so you only pay for what you use. So if you only switch it on for when you do the QA, might be
Nice.
cheaper.
Okay. Yeah. This is OpenAI's API. It costs absolutely nothing, cents for 1 million requisitions. So it's really cheap. I have $10 for a month and only spent 2 cents so far.
All right. Maybe that was great. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Maybe we'll hand it over to Yao to share some of the summit insights and takeaways.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for sharing. Let me share my screen in turn. All right, cool. And yeah, I tagged Hobson that, you said like, oh, that's it. What you built is like really cool. So be sure to share it. It's like, oh, that's, and then the AI does the analysis and that's it. Yeah, be sure to share that on the forum as a showcase so others can sort of benefit from that. And I think there will be more. I just saw the news that OpenAI shipped its open source models yesterday, and a lot of them run locally. They need a lot of RAM, but a lot of this stuff will eventually be run locally on computers and phones. So a lot of exciting things. So I want to, I don't have a ton of time as always. So I want to talk a little bit about the summit that we had in Rome. Um, uh, Talk through some of the takeaways, some reflections, and then talk a little bit about entities. So this is a picture of the attendees at this year's summit. This was in Rome. I think we had about 43 folks that were able to attend, stakeholders, experts, and the idea was that we wanted to sort of share experiences, surface some challenges, and try to shape the future of the platform. This summit was a little different than other summits in that we were really sort of focused on agriculture, helping organizations sort of support smallholder farmers, manage climate adaptation, and improve supply chains. It was a great event, I think. We had a lot of fun. So it wasn't just work. We had some talks. Folks got a chance to visit some of the sites, eat some food, and generally hang out with the ODK team. So that was a great experience. I always get asked like, how do we decide who comes, who? Obviously, we want to invite everybody that we can. Usually, because of budget limitations and logistics limitations, we're usually limited to about 50 people. So we try to pick folks who, from different organizations, who can bring different perspectives, folks who've been contributing, folks that we know as customers, and all those kinds of things to try to get a good mix, a representative mix that can help sort of inform our roadmap going forward. I don't know when the next one is going to be. It's always exhausting before and exhausting after. It's a lot of energy during, but it's like a lot of work before and a lot of work after. So we need to sort of decompress and figure out. But usually we've been doing them every 2 years. So we'll see what we can do. But yeah, the theme. We want to talk about the theme. Why did we do agriculture? We opened the session with a panel from Elena. Robson was there on the panel. Eduardo was there. Irene from and Veritas to talk a little bit more about why we're focused on agriculture. One of the big drivers was that the funder Gates was particularly interested in agriculture, so that made it very easy. But we wanted to we've always focused on public health and global health, but agriculture has a lot of use cases for entities. And so we had a panel that discussed some of that stuff, and it's in the report. But even though it was agriculture focused, the idea was to use agriculture as a lens with which we can see what some of these generic problems are, so we can bring it to folks who are working out with donkeys, or folks who are working with turtles, or folks who are in health. So some of the takeaways were that agriculture specific, that agriculture use cases often have remote sensing, satellite imagery, and they want to ground truth it. And so that was a big part of the use case for compliance with supply chain rules and regulations, that there was stuff being done with satellite imagery, but ground truthing was still needed, and that things that could loop the data back to participants or users could be transformative. And even though it was agricultural specific, a lot of the software was like really inflexible, and so ODK Entities provides a compelling alternative. We just heard from Stu, you could be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, but instead you can pay 40, and that's a huge difference. And so there's a possibility there. And then more importantly for us, that the examples from agriculture opened up new use cases and sort of inspires people from other sectors to build on what is possible. So, what Robson, for example, has just shared is an agriculture-specific use case, but obviously the general idea is applicable to everybody. So even though agriculture was the lens, it was not the only thing that we wanted to focus on. Some of the highlights, these are all in the report, so I won't focus too much about this, but if you haven't read the report, please do. It's got a lot of good stuff in there, and pictures and talks and all those kinds of things. So these are some of the highlights. We'll talk about some of these things in the next coming minutes, but I wanted to sort of open the floor for a few minutes to see if anybody who either attended the summit or read the summit report wanted to share any very quick. How much time do we have, Ali, on reflections? A few minutes on reflections. So I want to just open up the floor. If anybody has any reflections, now is a great time. Then we'll jump into more stuff about entities. Let me check the chat.
Just a quick one to say, it was a fabulous event. It was really well organized and all of that. But the thing for me was it gave me confidence. It gave me confidence that some of the things that I've been sort of thinking about in my own kind of silo or in my own area were applicable to other things, and they really worked, and other people's ideas were like, okay, I can use that. So that cross-fertilization was incredibly useful personally, and I hope other people that were there got something similar from it.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other reflections?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. The forum's amazing, the insiders calls are amazing, and support that's provided is great. But so being able to see what other people are doing and then have a conversation about it and explore things a bit more with a either a tight timeline or a bit more relaxed timeline outside of sessions was really helpful. So being able to come up with ideas and talk about things that and explore that. So which had a couple of some chats with Daniel and saw some things that I'd never even realized that were ways that you could do things in forms. Like that was very helpful to see that, and I don't know how I would have ever discovered some of those things outside of those interactions.
Thank you. Any other reflections?
In my case, great experience to know each other about different uses of ODK, I think, and the knowledge that we hear on the summit. It was great, and of course the ODK cafe. It was great.
Thank you to Andrew for bringing some coffee. I should have had some this morning. I just regular old tea. So thank you for that.
I was going to share something really quick, just saying that getting to know what people's projects are and the kind of workflows that they're doing is helpful, because a lot of times on the forum, you just kind of shoot in the dark and you kind of get to know more of what people are involved in, but actually getting to see a face with people on the forum, but then also meeting people that you wouldn't probably otherwise interact with on the forum, and get to know what domains they're working in, so that if you come up with a problem later, you might be able to just reach out to somebody or tag somebody in a forum post and get answers a little bit quicker.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for me, there's so much to say. I'm just reacting with my heart because I absolutely love the event, and the sense of belonging, the sense of community, and strengthening the relationships between everybody, and even really hoping to do more, to be more in the community. This sense of belonging, incredible. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, let me thank you everybody for sharing. Yeah, it was a good experience, and we're hoping to find ways to sort of do more of that over time. Let's talk next about entities and visualizing data, and talk a little bit about some of the stuff we discussed at the summit, and also what we've been able to accomplish in the short time after the summit. So we'll be focused on sort of entity-powered workflows, the entity first experience that we launched, or the vision for entity first experience that we launched, and then some of the mapping stuff in Central, and Nicole and Wicher will take that on. So let's talk about entity-powered workflows. So historically, ODK has been about data capture, and with entities, we're moving more towards a world where there's more data and workflow and management. So we sort of, one of the biggest takeaways for us is that we know that users across a bunch of different domains, from agriculture to health, election monitoring, find value in entities. So that's great. We've been putting a lot of work into it, and people find value in it. That's fantastic. We also heard some feedback that the learning curve is steep. And we need ways to make it easier. I 100% agree. I stumble around a lot when I'm building entities-powered forms, so I know that the learning curve is steep. We hope that the Kappa, the Ask AI bot, is helpful in that way. It's mostly trained on stuff that Ellen has written, so it's usually a pretty good resource. And so you can always ask the bot, and it can be very helpful there. And we know that folks are filling in the gaps with a variety of scripts and those kinds of things. So we know that there are some challenges there. The things that we're working on that are coming up real soon in the next 6 months, we want to clean up mistakes. You can't rename entity list, you can't delete entity. So as you're stumbling through your entity powered workflow, you're just like your project is littered with farmers _1, farmers _2. We know that's annoying. So that's coming. So we're going to be able to delete unused properties and lists, and that's coming real soon. The other thing that we're working on is entity ownership. So this is all to serve the ability to sort of filter your data. So we're in phase 1 now, where you can have this concept of ownership. You'll soon be able to change ownership as far as like an entity belongs to a particular data collector or a particular manager. We want to sort of move towards that way. And then the end vision here is that you want to be able to create an entity, assign it to somebody, and move that entity around. And that will let you do things like, this data collector should only have this list of entities. So that's where we're moving towards. So over the next 6 months, you see progress there. There is forum post on this on the different phases. And so hopefully Ali or Nicole can drop that into the chat for you if you want to learn more. Beyond a year, hopefully sooner than that, but we can't promise anything. So beyond a year, we know that finding the right entity is kind of annoying, right? There's not a lot of sorting. There's not a lot of geographic context on the map. And, you know, I think Stu had mentioned everybody has the same name on Lamu. So you don't want to get a drop-down list of, you know, all the Johns or all the Mohammeds or those kinds of things. So we want to add more functionality that makes it easier to identify the right person or donkey that you're looking for, and when there is a conflict or a close match, that we can use some UI UX to sort of show that to you. So we know some of these things are big challenges. So for example, being able to just like create and update an entity, like the user experience is not great. You have to sort of do this kind of weird search, and then if they don't match, then create. That's not super intuitive. We know that everybody here on the call tends to be super clever about their form design, and so you can do things in lots of clever ways as far as like searching and showing people on a map, but it's mostly limited to XPath expressions, and it would be nice if that was sort of less technical and more on the UI and UX. Being able to show status here again, you can be super clever. So here, like a list of people who have been, you know, who've reached some sort of state, you can use emojis in the instance name, like dynamic emojis to do that. But that's kind of hacky. And so we want to make improvements there. Then the other thing is, you know, as you use more entities powered workflows, you do want to break things up into different forms, like a registration form, an update form, and those kinds of things. But there's no sequencing there, right? One doesn't come after the other. So these are some of the things that we want to improve with entities over time. So we do have a vision for this. So the high level vision is that the question that we're trying to answer is that, can we move away from stuffing all that stuff into the XLS form? And can we provide some UI, some UX, some other primitives that you can use to sort of go entities first, and have easier ways to both navigate and interact with forms? So that's one of the big things that this vision is what we launched at the summit. We call it an entity first experience. Here's some screenshots. I've only got a few minutes, so I'm gonna show you. Ali promised me that it would go too long, but I'm confident that I can slowly and deliberately show you a few screenshots, sort of whet your appetite about what's coming for this vision. So instead of going form first, where you open up a form, start a new form, we're imagining an application, a vision, a configuration where you start with the entities, either as a list or in a map. And so data collectors will be able to open their app and see entities within a map, use a barcode to identify an entity, or just use fuzzy search. And you can sort of see what a mock-up UI would look like, where you start with a map and you can filter down to the different columns that are in the different farmers who are columns in your project. So that is something that we want to iterate on and build. Once you identify a few of them, we want to be able to dig into those details to figure out if those entities or farmers that you're looking at are the correct ones. And so you'll be able to do things like see the previous encounters, see where they are on the map, and we know media is a big thing, be able to see pictures associated with that particular entity. So that's something that we want to work on. Actually, we're making great progress on that media side right now. And then only show forms that are relevant to that particular entity, right? Like you don't want to show, yeah, if you've already visited the farmer, you don't need to have a farmer visit form in there. So have some filtering there so you only see the relevant things. And then the last thing is, like, if you don't find an entity, have an easier way. How about like a big plus button, for example, to sort of create the entity and fill out the necessary information. So those are the kinds of things that we want to do. So we call this sort of our entity first experience. We are currently, doing mock-ups, doing technical spikes to get all those pieces in place. As always, we cannot predict or promise exactly when this will ship, but we are working really hard on it. It's an absolute priority for us, and so we're doing our best to sort of move quickly on it. But I want to open it up for a few minutes of questions about this vision for an entity's first workflow to see if you have any questions, concerns, or anything like that. I know I went really fast, so I can also go back to any of the slides if it's helpful. So I want to open up the floor for a little bit of Q&A.
It looks like it's going to solve quite a lot of the feedback that I've had from the team on the ground about the difficulties they've been having. So updating owner details is one of them. So if someone doesn't bring their ID card or something like that, if we can have, what you've just shown, makes it look a lot easier. Also registering an owner and then registering the donkey, if you can have to add those within sort of an owner registration, that looks like it would solve a lot of problems on the ground as well. So yeah, really, really good.
Fantastic. Matthew has a good question there in the chat about how do you switch from entity first to classic one. We're hoping that this is something that people can sort of opt into. So like if you have some hopeful configuration either on the server side or perhaps in the form, you say like, oh, I want either the classic view, the form first view, or the entities first view, and that's something that a project manager can configure. So that's what we're hoping for. Yeah, part of the challenge here is figuring out where do we put things in a way that's useful. But yes, we don't want to force this on anybody. It's something that we want people to choose if it's helpful for their workflow, because there's definitely situations where you don't want to be entities first. How do you envision, Hussein had a question, how do you envision a situation where you handle sub-entities? So my understanding of a sub-entity is like something that's linked, right? Like I have a household entity, and within that household, I have different people in that household, I have farms within that household, and all those kinds of things. If you look at this screenshot, you can kind of see that we have clusters and farmers and farms and plots. That is sort of a hierarchy. You can't really see it in the UI. That's why it's a mock-up. But that's what our hope is to be able to do this sort of linking of entities. You can do that now if you build your entities and put a relational ID between the two of them. But yes, the hope is that we want to make these kinds of hierarchies more natural and obvious, and make that a primitive that people can use. What about the demand to make simple submissions re-editable locally? Yes, that feature has shipped. Wolf had a question about being able to edit submissions. You can today in ODK Collect edit submissions. You have to opt in with a form design. I happen to know that Wolf uses Kobo, so Kobo has to update Collect and the form processing library to make that feature possible. But local edits on submissions shipped, I think, about a month ago in Core ODK. Any plans to make widgets to shortcut straight to a specific entity view? Ooh. Yeah, that's a good idea. We can add that to our user research library, Tyler, to make that possible. And I know you had a bug about shortcuts, and that bug is being fixed as we speak. So good progress all around. Any other questions, concerns, feedback about this? It's not even a new direction, but this direction that we're continuing to head down as far as an entity first view.
Yeah, is there an angle to see the entities, if the entities have a polygon geometry, could you overlay them on a map?
Yes, so that's true now, is that if you have an entity with a geometry in it, whether it's a point, a line, or a shape, when you use select from view, it will use that geometry to place it on a map. And if it has special properties like marker color or marker width or stroke width, it'll use that to customize it. So that's available today in ODK.
Wow, that's
right?
amazing.
Yeah, so it's
Can you
already
label
in
it?
there. What was
Can
that?
you do like a can you specify a label?
I believe it uses the label in the entities column to display that. So when you click
Perfect.
on it, And I guess this is a great way for me to, so I'll pause here. I see some other questions in the chat. I'll address those questions, but I want to pause here and hand things over to Nicole in just a second, because she's going to be talking a little bit about geometry and those kinds of things. I want to end with just one thing. We need your feedback on this. So if you have more feedback, more questions, you can scan this QR code. I'm hopeful it goes to an ODK forum. That would be weird if it didn't. I didn't check. But Ali can also drop the link. And I believe it goes to a web form even. So that's pretty exciting. So Ali, can you, if you can, please drop a link in
Yeah,
the
I put it
chat
in.
as well, so that people can fill out those forms. So we're gathering feedback from folks who are using entities to learn more about what they think of the entities first feature, and sort of help shape it. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hand things over to Nicole. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Cool, thanks. I am looking for the window I'm trying to share.
I've been there, Nicole.
It's my Zoom.
Would it be helpful
Sorry,
for me to share? I can just
yeah, that would
share.
be great.
All right,
Thanks.
cool. No worries. Teamwork makes the dream work. All right.
Cool, thank you. So as a segue from the conversations with around maps in Collect, we are also exploring maps in ODK Central. So our goal is to introduce a map view into the system to bring some more spatial insight directly into the platform and to provide some very quick context. Some user stories we're trying to solve with this feature is to quickly see progress by location to help guide field work, spot data issues like missing or overlapping points, and to be able to navigate to those specific submissions faster if you're looking at them on map view. So not exactly a widget, Tyler, but a quicker way to get there. Some considerations that we took into account while designing the first iteration of what maps are that forms vary. So they are unpredictable. Some just have one geopoint, others have multiple. Maybe people put geometry inside repeats. Understanding which geometry we should map, if it's the first that's available, if we let the users choose which one they want to show, and what happens if things change. So if the form schema changes or submissions get edited, which geometry do we trust? So some high-level decisions that we've made are to value simplicity, performance, and clarity. So one geometry per submission, we are going to avoid complexity during this MVP to just keep it simple. We're going to choose a single representative geometry for the submission. We are going to use a predictable geometry field, so automatically pick the first non-repeated geometry. Repeated fields are skipped for now. They're just a little bit more complex to deal with for the first version. And lastly, we want to make sure that any way we go about this doesn't significantly slow down submission processing.
Cool.
So for our first release, we are going to focus on making mapping practical and robust. Users will be able to see where submissions landed directly in Central. When a form is uploaded, Central identifies the first usable geometry field. When a submission comes in, it'll extract the value at that path and store it as metadata. And if a submission is edited, we will use the latest form version and re-extract geometry accordingly. So the next slide is a quick GIF to show what this might look like. It's not built yet, so these are just some pretty pictures. Vihar is working on building it right now, but essentially we are going to toggle to a map view from your submissions table, see the submissions mapped, and then be able to hover on those pins to get individual data information. So yeah, that's what we're currently working on. I'd love to open the floor to any questions, comments, or if anyone wants to share even what geometry represents in your projects to understand how this feature might work for you, what next steps might be helpful.
In my case, I think it's very useful because in a general view of a map, you can see all, in my case, for example, all the farmers or where are the farms, right? In a single visualization, I think, and it's very useful.
I'm thinking in ecological surveys where you have study sites you visit, maybe define ahead as entities, and then you visit them and then you survey them. And as a study coordinator, I want to know, have all sites been visited today, or what are summary statistics about those sites? Have I got like what's the data coming in, like a little histogram of data by date for that site, for that geometry or something? That would be some kind of that. That's probably something like submission dates, histogram for a site, or something that might be very generic and might be something that can be built without form knowledge. That would be super insightful, maybe at a higher level.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think sort of building what Florian just said is clicking on those points and being able to determine what you see in the pop-up next to it. So for my case, I'd want to click on a point and see the barn name next to it and how many donkeys were done in that barn, being that the donkeys are in a repeat for that barn. So yeah, kind of just real basic summary statistics that you as a project manager can determine what you're seeing.
One thing I want to just add to that is that so we're soon going to be supporting creating entities from a repeat. So because right now you cannot create entities from a repeat. So we'll have that functionality in there, and our hope is that once we have that that feature, you can also visualize. This is just like a submission visualization right now that you're looking at in the GIF, but we will also have a similar entities visualization. So for some projects, it may make more sense to visualize your submissions, but for other projects, it may make more sense to visualize your entities. And then knowing that you're going to visualize your entities in some sort of map, you can also structure entities in such a way that they make more sense to map. So you have a lot of options there. You're not just forced to just use the submissions view if it's not relevant for you.
Can I just I've just seen the comment from Florian about slippery slopes. My understanding of it is that this is really, really useful for kind of initial analysis or initial kind of data collection phase, rather than a tool to be able to do analysis with. So exactly that thing of what data's been collected this week or this today, that map would be really, really good as a dynamic kind of map, which is what I understand it as being. So you would filter that list of submissions and then show that map. That's a really powerful tool during data collection. I don't think it's another kind of tool for analysis as such. And I think there's other tools out there, and we've discussed this before about, you know, Central not being the one tool that binds them all, so to speak. There are other things that you can do, but I think this is really, really helpful at the kind of project manager level of where have we got to. I think it's great.
Awesome. To your point on filtering data, we are working on making the filtering consistent across submissions and entities. So that's something that's coming, I think, in the next release for Central, and you'll be able to filter through like date, submitted by, states. So that'll be available at the map view as well. So great to hear that that'll be helpful.
Wolf had a good question about, is this geo view available offline as well? So this view so far is only available in Central, but there is a similar view already in Collect. Like if your submission has a location point, if your form has a geo point in it, in the form list, there's a map icon on the right-hand side that if you tap will show you all the submissions on a map. So even this view is only, really what this is that we're bringing some of that collect functionality over to Central. So this view is only in Central, so it's online.
Oh, yeah. And my question, I think a request I made, I think I mentioned it at the summit, if we could have the trail for audit also be shown there. I don't know, it's a Christmas wish, maybe. Yeah, so I think for our use case, as Chris had mentioned, for the high level, project management, you'd want to see the path the enumerator went through before they made the final submission. So maybe toggle to add it or not see it, that would help. I think currently, because the audit needs to be downloaded as a file, it's another level of analysis that is done by a separate team. But if you could have that, you could know the path that the enumerator went through, and you could decide to either accept or reject it if that's a guideline you want to implement.
Sadly, I think Jakub is right that this is in scope. as far as the use case of being able to sort of accept or reject a submission, yeah, it does seem like it would be helpful. Maybe in another phase though, but I agree that it would be helpful.
If you let the cat out of the bag now, with this whole map thing in Central, this is opening the floodgates. There's no stopping it now.
It's a good. It's a I'm laughing, but it is a serious matter in that we think very carefully about where the bounds of ODK are, because we do have a small team, and we don't want to, as Florian pointed out, rebuild Power BI. Microsoft seems to be struggling building Power BI. So, but we do think like in the same way, like conceptually, what I was thinking about is like in the same way that we have a list of submissions in a table, it can be helpful to see a list of submissions in a map. And we want to be really thoughtful about just building that out incrementally, shipping a small feature first, see how people use it, see what use cases it addresses, and see what's the thing that we're going to sort of add next. But so, Florian, it might be a slippery slope, but we want to be we're carefully stepping 1 foot at a time down that slope to make sure that we don't slip into rebuilding Power BI.
I'm just saying this is amazing, and it will solve so many problems. Every door you open is going to open 10 more doors, solving more business problems. So whatever you build, it's gonna be so helpful.
Really nice to hear. Thank you, Florian.
I was just wondering, how are you planning on dealing with layering of points? Just thinking about my use case, we've got a barn. On a certain day, 3 vets will go and survey the donkeys in said barn. So I've got 3 points on one day. Well, 3 different assessors from that day. If I click on one, is that going to be the latest point, or are you going to aggregate those? And then obviously they will do that on different days as well. So I just think from a designing a map point of view and a usability point of view, it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, maybe I'm saying something obvious.
Oh yeah, thanks,
but
Peter.
the idea, our initial idea is to make this map view comparable to the submission view that you see in the table, right? So what you can see in the table, you can see on the map. That is the idea, or at least those submissions. Not all data from that submission, well, for now, the first geo feature. would show up or on the map. So, and then offer a hyperlink from, or well, a something, so that when you click that geopoint or geoshape or whatever it is that you mapped, you can see the details again of that submission. So the level that we're working at is the submission level, right? So if you have if those 3 visits to was the barn, you said those 3 visits, if those are separate, form submissions, then you will have 3 points for that farm, but you will also have the date filters, the same ones, and submitter filters, same ones as you see for the table. So you could say to the map, only show me things of today and not all the visits to the barn of yesterday in the weeks before. You see?
Okay, so you wouldn't use a clustering on that map to highlight an icon with 3 written in it, which you then click on and it would splay those out to click on the 3 assessors submissions.
I'm not excluding it, but we're not there.
That's cool. No. But I totally see Florian and Chris's point that, as soon as you start doing this, you do start replicating Power BI and all the complexities that you have with that. I mean, I use Shiny for this, and I do exactly the same. I just put all the points out in the latest one is at the top, and then people draw a box around that, and it gets all the data for that point.
That's nice.
Yeah, I can ping. Oh, I can't ping a link, so password protected it. I'll email you over a link to our dashboard and a username and password for it, so you can have a look.
Yeah, why not?
So Wicher, my understanding is that a lot of these sort of the clustering and those kinds of things can be done on the front end. Like it doesn't have to be done at like the whatever mapping library that we end up choosing can do some of that clustering for us. Is that correct?
That's correct. Open layers mentions that feature. Looked around in the API a bit. I don't know how it works or how it would look, but that's definitely something to figure out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Leaflet cluster markers.
Okay.
That might work.
Uh-huh.
They're pretty performant, so it's you can put a lot of points on a map before it starts to slow down.
Yeah, I don't know if Jennifer is on the call, but that's something we're exploring some of those different libraries right now and seeing what makes most sense because we want consistency with web forms and central. So we're looking at a few of those right now and kind of doing a comparison with the features we need and what's available. So we'll probably share some of that on the forum once we finish that kind of research.
I think Jennifer is on the call, but maybe.
I didn't see. Yeah, Jennifer, if you want. Oh, yeah, there you are. Do you want to share anything?
Hello, everyone. I'm not in video because I'm a bit late here. Yeah, we have been doing a research across 3 libraries, which is OpenLayers, Leaflet, and MapLibre. And yeah, so far, Leaflet and OpenLayers are winning. Funny, we have been testing with thousands of GeoJSON points and thousands of geo shapes, like polygons. And so far, our research is showing that OpenLayers is using the latest technology in the browser for rendering, like actually using the graphic processor, and then that's slightly faster than Leaflet. But we're still on the research, and then yeah, we're gonna share the final report. And yeah, they have some clustering features, so that that's a good way to make it also faster. And as people zoom in, then more shapes or points it shows on the map.
Cool. Well, we can jump to the next slide and chat a little bit about next steps. So thanks for all the awesome feedback and questions. We would love to hear more about that and get folks more involved in user research. Ali has dropped the links to both of these forum posts where we've talked about Maps in Central and Entity First Experience. These are things that are still in design and have different phases, so it's not too late to get your input in to share what your project needs are. So that's a great place to do it. And our next Insiders Call will be on September 3rd, where we will have a lightning talk from Chris.